Well, this is the Israeli Sabbath, so for another couple of hours there won't be any kind of public reaction. But it is known that those people who admired him, at one point he was known as Sharon, King of Israel. That was the way his admirers, especially in the poorer quarters of Tel Aviv, for example, or in Jerusalem, used to call him. He was a symbol of basically. It might be mentioned that he was a native Israeli. His parents, who came from Russia, and he was raised on a collective farm here in Israel. So he was one of the first Israeli leaders who actually could claim roots in the country rather than being an immigrant. And he had that ethos of calling himself, in many cases, a farmer. And he continued to cultivate crops on his ranch and raise livestock on his ranch in the northern Negev. In some respects, Israelis thought that he had the better qualities of Israelis. But on the other hand, politicians, if they weren't wary of him, distrusted him. The first Israeli Prime Minister, David Ben Gurion, was noted as saying that Sharon lied to him. And another Prime Minister, Menachem Begin, who was Prime Minister when Israel went into Lebanon, also felt that Sharon had deeply misled him on the actual military objectives going all the way to Beirut.
Right, and a dark episode of his career, perhaps one of the darkest, was his implication in the Sabra and Shatila massacres in Lebanon in 1982, Tom. And I can imagine that there are many in Lebanon and elsewhere in the region that won't be crying over Ariel Sharon. But after that massacre, despite that massacre and his implication, he went on to become Israeli Prime Minister.
Well, first he became, yes, he was out of politics for quite a while, in disgrace, publicly in disgrace, because an official government commission had blamed him for the indirect responsibility, allowing Israeli troops knowingly to stand by while the Christian Phalange forces went into the Sabra and Shatila camps and committed mass murder, according to the findings of an Israeli commission. And as you heard from one of his friends just a few minutes ago, Sharon always denied that he had anything to do with that, and that had he been able to, he would have not allowed that to happen. But on the other hand, Sharon was also known for being ruthless as a military commander when going into the refugee camps in Gaza in the early and mid 70s to hit Fedayeen enclaves there who were attacking Israeli outposts inside Israel as well. So he does definitely have a mixed resume, but Israelis
legacy.
will definitely remember him as one of the most decisive leaders in Israeli history.
He was also, of course, the architect of Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, but also stunned the outside world when he called and completely withdrew Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip, the unilateral withdrawal of Israel from Gaza in 2005, which was a decision that was heavily criticized inside Israel. So again, it seems like opposing traits in his character.
Sharon, it might be mentioned, never had any religious affiliation or affinity for the territories that Israel captured in 1967. He always saw this as a nationalistic vision, but not something that was ordained necessarily by God, as many religious Israelis believe. But when he made the decision to remove Israeli forces, he called it the separation from the Gaza Strip, and forcibly pull out 7,500 Israeli settlers who did not want to go, as well as a few in the northern what's called northern Samaria, the northern part of the West Bank. He was met with a lot of opposition, including from the current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who parted company with him politically and refused to join him. So Sharon founded his own party, the Kadima Party, and actually had that in itself showed that he was he was making very hard decisions about ideological questions to what he regarded as the best interest of Israel. But again, as you said, his feeling was that Israelis had the right to have Jewish settlements on the West Bank, and that, in fact, what he always contended was that the true Palestine was actually Jordan, that if there some kind of an arrangement could be made with the Kingdom of Jordan, where the population actually is a majority Palestinian, then some kind of political accommodation could happen. But as far as Yasser Arafat, the head of the Palestinians, the undisputed head of the Palestinians at that time was concerned, Sharon had absolutely no patience for him. And as Mike mentioned, he actually besieged Arafat when he was allowed to return to the West Bank in his compound in Ramallah, just before Arafat took sick and eventually died in France.